Did you know that children account for approximately 250,000 fires per year, and over 70% of juvenile fire setters are under the age of 10? Is your child or teenager curious about fire, or are they obsessed with flames? How can you tell the difference, and what is the cause? Is there some underlying mental illness? And what are some basic fire safety tips? Tune into Fresh Start today on October 28th at 3 p.m. on WNOV as we discuss the topic, Children Who Play with Fire, with special guests from the Milwaukee Fire Department.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Fresh Start today. I'm your host, Jermaine Reed, and my co-host is Sean Roby, and we are happy to be with you on this kind of cold October afternoon. It's 3:03 on Wednesday, and we have the pleasure of sitting down today with Lieutenant Bill Paulin from the Milwaukee Fire Department. Today we're going to be talking about children who play with fire. So good afternoon, Lieutenant.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Glad that you're able to be on here today. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's a couple things we want to do. One is we definitely want to take time to acknowledge fire prevention, that October is Fire Prevention Awareness Month. And so I'm sure you have a lot of activities or things that's been going on this month, you know, to create awareness around fire safety. And so how has that been?
Yes, well, October is generally one of our busiest months in the fire service because of all the educational opportunities that we go out to different schools, different community events, and we really preach about the fire safety, whatever that theme is for each year.
Oh, that's great. And listen, for those callers, individuals who are listening, you can call into the radio station today at 414-444-5250, 414-444-5250 if you have a question or comment as it relates to fire safety and prevention. Again, that number is 414-444-5250. So hopefully by the end of this program, the first half we're going to be talking with Lieutenant Paulin, and then the second half we'll be talking with Mr. Walton from the Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative, and just kind of get an update on how things went with their 10th year anniversary celebration at the Fatherhood Summit, and what's coming down the pipe, what's next for the Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative. So what we want to do right now with the first topic, we want to make sure that everybody understands what our objectives will be for this conversation. We want to first identify how pervasive is juvenile fire setting and learn about the different types of fire setters and understand to some degree why do juveniles set fires, discuss common juvenile fire setting myths, as well as discuss some basic fire prevention tips with our audience, and then also identify where folks can get some resources like maybe free smoke detectors.
Yes.
So we'll talk about those things. So the consequences of juvenile fire setting can be very tragic and costly. In a typical year, fires set by children and youth claim approximately 300 people's lives and destroy more than $300 million worth of property, and this is according to the U.S. Fire Administration. Thorough understanding of juvenile fire setting, including why children and youth set fire, is key to curbing this destructive, deadly behavior. And hopefully we'll be able to get off into that a little bit today. And if not, then continue this conversation at a later date. So we've had our lieutenant introduce himself. He's from the Milwaukee Fatherhood Department. My first question to you is, how big is this problem of fire setting by juveniles, nationally and locally?
Well, locally, we've been very fortunate here in Milwaukee, where the Milwaukee Fire Department responds to about almost 90,000 runs every single year. Okay, of that 90,000 runs, approximately 3,000 are fire related.
Okay.
And of that 3,000, we do about 800 working structure fires a year. And of those fires, we historically have been very fortunate in Milwaukee, where we'll have a very small percentage of those fires that were actually started by juveniles.
A very small percentage.
Now,
how does that compare nationally?
Nationally, I don't have those exact figures, but I would say that Milwaukee is a very a good-sized city and that we are comparable as far as on a national level.
Now, what I was reading, and I think from the NFPA, now that stands for the National Fire
Protection
Agency.
Yes.
They had a report, and they had said there are approximately like 300,000 fires per year, and that juveniles are responsible for approximately half of those fires. And I've seen 250,000, I've seen 300,000, but no, I'm sorry, 600,000 fires annually. That's national statistics, and that juveniles account for 250,000 to 300,000 those fires, and so that's a huge number right there. And so for you to say here in Milwaukee that those numbers are not that big, what do you attribute that to?
Well, I would say that we contribute that to the Survive Alive House. Milwaukee is an absolute leader in educating our youth. We're excellent at overall fire education, but when it comes to educating our youth, the Survive Alive House is one of the premier educational opportunities for children pertaining to fire safety, and that program works.
How long is that program? Because I don't remember going to the fire safety house or.
Okay, the Survive Alive House has been we've been doing that since 1992. And it's located off of 20th and Forest Home. And annually, we will do over 13,000 children. So every MPS student that's in second grade and fifth grade, they come through there.
Second through fifth?
Second and fifth graders.
Fifth grade.
Second and fifth graders. So a student that goes to school in MPS, they'll go through the Survive Alive House twice in their academic career. They'll go through in second grade, they'll go through again in fifth grade. And you know what? By the time they come through in the fifth grade, they could actually teach that class.
Wow.
And that's very important, I think, because you want to provide those type of educational, foundational things early on so kids know. And like you said, they can teach that and pay it forward to other children and other family members.
Absolutely. I mean, when we teach that, we tell the students, hey, listen, at the end of the day, not only are you going to know about fire safety and how to get out of your house in case you do have a fire, but more importantly, you're going to actually go home and you're going to become a teacher.
Wow.
Because you're going to teach your parents, maybe you live with your grandparents, maybe some cousins, you're going to teach them everything that you learned while you were here.
And that's empowering for a kid.
It saves lives.
Absolutely.
It absolutely saves lives. So I was reading something from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention that was relating to the different type of fire setters, and something that caught my eye was talking about the difference between a juvenile who plays with fire and a juvenile who sets fire. That there is, according to this publication or this source, that there is a difference, and then I would like to get your response in terms of what your thoughts are. But according to the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, research reveals an apparent distinction between fire play and fire setting behaviors. Both behaviors may produce varying degrees of damage and injury, but they differ in their levels of intent and malice. Fire play is often used to convey a low level of intent to inflict harm and an absence of malice, whereas fire setting is decidedly different, is more malicious and direct in its intent. So do you agree with that, or what have you seen from your view of the world?
In my opinion, in the over 25 years that I've been fortunate to serve with the Milwaukee Fire Department, I have found that fascination with fire is a normal developmental sequence in a child's life.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
I think that everybody, when we're children, when we see fire, or we see it on TV, or we see that fire engine or
in
fire
video
truck,
games,
now with the advent of video games, that's a normal thing that a child is like, wow, that's kind of cool.
Okay.
That's a normal part of growing.
When does it become abnormal?
It becomes abnormal when they actually act out on it. So setting a fire is not part of the normal developmental stage in a child's life. So the thinking about it and the just kind of fantasizing about it is a normal part of developing in the brain. But acting out is not the normal part.
Now, this same publication that I read indicated that literature suggests that the use of fire by juveniles may indicate that fire can be both an instrument of power as well as serve as a weapon. And so, how does that play out? I mean, when it's an instrument of power or instrument of weapon, is that more so with children who are fascinated with fire, or is there something more, psychologically going on there when it moves to that level?
Well, again, of course, I'm not a clinical
Right.
psychologist, but in my opinion, that problem fire setting is a child who feels ineffective or anxious and seemingly powerless in a world that he or she feels is kind of out of control.
Okay.
So that's a way of them acting out
Okay.
by setting a fire. Okay, because they have some type of control over that
Okay. Because
And I
because
think
they said it.
there you go. And actually, what I was going to say when you look at intent versus malice, I believe that's what you said. And you may have somebody who and when you speak about curiosity, someone who they may see a lighter or a box of matches and they may flick one and throw it. No ill intention. Versus somebody who may get a cat and put a cat in a bag and light the bag on fire. That seems a little more extreme with a little more malice associated
And
with
generally, an act like that is an act of acting out.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we find that the children that do acts like that, really malicious, they're acting out because they may be in a very stressful situation in their life.
Well, that's really interesting because what that says to me is that playing with fire or children using fire as a means of control and power is a communication tool. It can be, so if we have children, because what we've seen oftentimes in children or with children who are in foster care is that, and we've seen it in our own agency, children who have set bedrooms or set mattresses on fire, and they're angry. There's some mental health issues going on, and this whole thing about feeling powerless. They don't have any control over being in out-of-home care, what's going on in their lives. But a couple things, they do have control over their bodies, so their toileting can be, restricted. But also this thing about fire, because they may not be able to access lighters and what you call it, cigarettes and alcohol, but from a standpoint of power, I can access lighters and matches, and I can set this whole place on fire to communicate that I am so upset and angry with what's going on in my world right now. So I think that kind of ties into what you're talking.
And that is extremely powerful, because sometimes when you talk about different forms of communication, particularly with kids, and if they've been sexually abused or something, they may draw fire, and it might be very vivid with sharp ridges and things like that. So that speaks to what you were talking about.
For those folks who are just tuning into Fresh Start today, our topic is children who play with fire. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Lieutenant Bill Paulin from the Milwaukee Fire Department.
Did you know that Black children represent 67% of our local foster care community, according to the Department of Children and Families' most recent annual report? Many of these children are not only removed from their parents and siblings, but are placed in families, schools, and neighborhoods that do not reflect or honor their race, culture, or heritage. I was talking to some children who are in foster care the other day, and they said this traumatic experience often leaves them feeling sad, scared, and lonely. Black children and youth do matter. You can help the most vulnerable population of children in our community by becoming a licensed, culturally responsible foster parent with Fresh Start Family Services. Come learn more at our Foster Care Recruitment Fair on November the 7th, 2015 at 10 a.m. at Fresh Start Administrative Office, 1720 West Flores Avenue, Suite 200. For more information, call 414-351-1100. That's 414-351-1100.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Fresh Start today, and we're talking about children who play with fire with our special guest, Lieutenant Bill Paulin from the Milwaukee Fire Department. We have a caller on the line. Miss Rose.
Yes, I just want to share that sometimes there are other reasons why children might play with fire. When I was a little girl, somewhere between 2 and 5, I don't know the exact age I was. I don't recall the exact age. A young lady was asked to watch me while my mother did whatever, and while I was asleep, the lady just decided to just go quickly to the store and get something she had forgotten, whatever it was. It was only like a quarter of a block to the store. And I happened to wake up and there was no one there. And when I went into the living room, I saw this beautiful Persian rug. It must have been a throw rug because I was able to pick it up. And then there was a fireplace or a vehicle that was a nice, beautiful fire. And I saw the flames. The colors were so gorgeous. So I figured, gorgeous colors and gorgeous colors in the rug. They might make beautiful colors. And you know what happened? She came in just as I was putting the rug into that vehicle that held the flames.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is, children have imaginations that can be have nothing to do with
mental illness.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It
Just
has
imagination.
to do with the imagination of beauty, and because it's very colorful.
Absolutely.
All the different colors of the plane and everything. So I just wanted to share that with you, so that sometimes when you look at why children do things, it can be something completely different. And since I was a child when I did it, I can attest to that.
Okay. Well, I'm glad nobody got injured or hurt, Miss Rose.
Oh no, but yes, I did. I got beat.
Have you played with fire since then?
Never.
All right.
Never.
Teacher moment.
All right. Thanks a lot, Miss Rose.
Sure, have a blessed day.
And so we've learned that there are resources here locally that children and families can access in order to prevent fire, to become more informed about preventing fires. But let me ask you this. There are some different categories of fire setters, and I know of three. Can you kind of talk about what the different categories are? I know you talked about curiosity, those children who are curious. Are there other categories?
Well, the experimental,
Experimental?
kind of like what Miss Rose was just talking about.
Okay.
And then the problem.
Okay.
The children that want to set a fire because they want to act out.
Because they want to act out, or there's
Yes.
something going on. All right. And so when we look at this, let's talk about, you all have a resource. I mean, sometimes you all interview families,
That's correct.
mothers and children, fathers and children who are involved in fire setting. What does that assessment look like?
Yes, what will happen is when we find out that when we respond to a house fire and then we start peeling back that onion, so to speak, because we have a fire investigation unit, and they find out that there was a child that was responsible for setting this fire, we have a juvenile fire setter program. So then what we'll do is out at the training academy, we have 3 fire education specialists and myself, and we'll contact that parent along with the child, and we'll actually bring them out to the fire academy and sit down and have a conversation. And during that conversation, we'll ask the child some pointed questions. Why
Okay.
they did this, how did they do it? What were the means that they were able to do it? Are those means available all the time? Children are very visual.
Okay.
So if they see somebody playing with a lighter in their household, an adult, or if they see matches available and they see people smoking, well, they're more apt to actually play with those.
How preventable is fire setting?
It's very preventable.
Very preventable.
It basically comes down to leadership, mentorship, friendship. That family member explaining to those children what the adverse effects of fire can be.
Wow.
And that's so powerful so early on. And when you speak about MPS and doing it at 2nd grade and 5th grade, when children are really impressionable, I think that's very, very critical. And when you talk about mentorship and friendships and whatnot, that modeling is so important, because we model when we don't even realize we're modeling. So if mom or dad are constantly smoking cigarettes or playing with matches themselves, or older siblings are doing that, that child is definitely going to be more inclined to want to
Yes.
do it.
Yes.
Now, you talked about MPS partnering with you all, or working very closely with them to work with the children who are part of that district. But what about the other types of school environments? You have the charter schools, choice schools.
Right.
What do
we
those
reach out to every school in the
Okay.
city of Milwaukee.
Okay.
Charter
Okay.
schools, parochial schools. We have people can go on our website and request firefighters to come to every single school in the city of Milwaukee. And we'll come out there and we'll give a fire education briefing. We'll bring a
Is
fire
that free?
engine.
Or
Absolutely, it's
Okay,
free.
wow.
We'll bring a fire engine. We'll bring a fire truck, and the firefighters will show them how those apparatuses work and talk about that as firefighting as a career, and also talk about it educationally.
Okay. Wow, that's really powerful. Now, let me ask you something. your juvenile fire safety program is the Safe Firehouse that you talked about a little bit earlier, or is that different?
No, that's completely separate.
Okay, what is that?
What is
The juvenile fire
Fire-
safety program? Do we have one
the
locally?
juvenile fire setter program?
Okay.
Is when we gain knowledge that a child actually set a fire
Okay.
someplace.
Okay.
Okay, be it a garage, a car, a blanket, a house. Then we'll bring that child along with their guardian
Gotcha.
into the fire academy and have a conversation with them.
Conversation.
Yes.
And what typically happens after the conversation? I mean, is there a recommendation? I mean, if there's no criminal intent, and you're not the ones to determine whether there's a criminal intent or not, but what typically happens? Is there any kind of follow-up?
We do a follow-up, and then, our part is kind of finished because we give the parents or the guardian the tools to put in their toolbox to make sure that child really fully understands what he or she did and the ramifications of what they
What
did.
are those tools? Give me 2 or 3 of those tools.
Well, we talk about
Putting lighters and things up, of course.
the lighters,
The ramifications.
the smoking in front of children, making sure that you have smoke alarms in your house, and the danger of fire and the repercussions of when you have fires.
Because how fast do fires typically spread?
They double in size like every 10 seconds.
Really?
Wow.
So a fire that will start out, so a child that's playing with a lighter in his or her bedroom and starts their blanket on fire. Okay, it starts out. All fires start out small, unless of course we have an explosion.
Gotcha.
But all fires start out very small,
With a spark.
and then, if left unattended, it grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just continues to double.
So let me ask you something before I give my last question. But I want to find out about, this fire. What's the name of the house? Safe House?
Survive
Survive
Alive.
Alive.
Survive Alive House. The Survive Alive House. Can families take a field trip, to the Fire Alive?
Survive Alive.
Survive Alive. Survive. See, you
Yep,
tell I ain't
yep,
never been there before. Survive Alive. Survive Alive. Fire.
So the Milwaukee Fire Department's philosophy is basically we don't tell anybody no. We're
Okay.
all about educating
Okay.
people. So that Survive Alive House is a joint endeavor between Milwaukee Public Schools and the Milwaukee Fire Department. So we have a very set schedule as far as all MPS schools will come, 2nd and 5th graders will come through that facility. But then what we have is we also have 2 mobile Survive Alive houses.
Okay.
Which is the
2 mobile.
basic,
Okay.
the same thing, it's only a trailer. And that's when people can request for us to show up at a community event. They can request for us to show up at picnics, at festivals,
Wow.
block parties.
Is there a
and
number for them to call to request?
Yes, they can go online, and there's also a telephone number that
Okay.
they
Okay.
can call.
So tell me, give us some fire safety tips, because let me ask you this question. I'm going to give you a test question here, Lieutenant.
Okay.
Where in the home are fires typically started the most? Is it the kitchen or the bedroom?
I would say, and I don't know that for sure,
Okay.
but if you're going intentionally set,
Okay,
I would say in the bedroom.
right.
Okay.
But accidentally, it would be probably the kitchen
in
with
the
cooking.
kitchen,
So
yes.
after this caller, we're going to get some tips from Lieutenant Paulin, and also some resource numbers, a hotline number, and the location again of the Survive Alive Firehouse, as well as the time of operation. So caller, you're on Fresh Start today. You have a brief question or comment as relates to fire safety?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mrs. Sanaya, and I was calling in just to clarify about fire setting and the ages of children in terms of there's usually 3 categories, and the older kids. Do you find that they're setting fires more as a criminal act or out of curiosity?
Well, at that stage, at that young of a stage, a child, in my opinion, again, I'm not a psychologist, but they don't have a criminal mindset. When a child is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, I don't believe, and I may be wrong, but they're not doing that maliciously. They're doing it as a way to act out, or something's going on in their life, or it may have just been they did it by mistake. They were fascinated with fire, and they had the means available, a match or a lighter, and they thought, you know what, I'm just going to see what happens when I light this and set my blanket on fire. And I'll be able to control it, because once I set that on fire, I'll be able to control that blanket and keep it from extending to any other part of the room.
Miss Anaya,
Yes.
for those who are listening, Miss Anaya is the owner of a local child placement agency, or administrator at a local child welfare agency, Benevolence First. So thank you for tuning in, Miss Anaya. And something I saw that's reported by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention said that fire setting is restricted to children ages 12 or younger. Adolescent fire setting includes those 13 years old to the age of majority. And some additional information I read was talking about typically the delinquent or the child who is intending to set a fire typically are your older youth, just as what Lieutenant was saying here. But So hopefully that answered your question, but then you want to know something about those different categories of fire setters, because there's the cry for help, and there was a couple more.
You have the and as we've been speaking about already, the curious child, then the delinquents, the severely disturbed.
All right. So again, thanks a lot, Shirley, for tuning in. And so what we're going to do, we're going to go to break, and we'll continue this conversation with some more tips from the Lieutenant right after this break.
Did you know that Black children represent 67% of our local foster care community, according to the Department of Children and Families' most recent annual report? Many of these children are not only removed from their parents and siblings, but are placed in families, schools, and neighborhoods that do not reflect or honor their race, culture, or heritage. I was talking to some children who are in foster care the other day, and they said this traumatic experience often leaves them feeling sad, scared, and lonely. Black children and youth do matter. You can help the most vulnerable population of children in our community by becoming a licensed, culturally responsible foster parent with Fresh Start Family Services. Come learn more at our Foster Care Recruitment Fair on November the 7th, 2015 at 10 a.m. at Fresh Start Administrative Office, 1720 West Flores Avenue, Suite 200. For more information, call 414-351-1100. That's 414-351-1100. Foster the future. Foster a child.
Good afternoon. You're tuned in to Fresh Start today. We're talking about children who play with fire with our special guest, Lieutenant Bill Paulin from the Milwaukee Fire Department. Lieutenant Bill Paulin is not just someone who is battling or putting out fires, but he's definitely trying to do what he can along with the Milwaukee Fire Department to prevent fires from happening. And so we talked about the Survive Alive Firehouse. And where's that located?
Off of 20th and Forest Home.
20th and Forest Home. And is there a number there that we can give folks, or a number that folks can call? And if we don't, then we'll get that before the end of the show.
That telephone number is 385-3240.
3240. 385-3240. 414. And remember, parents, take some time to schedule an appointment to go out there with your children, with your nephews, your nieces, your grandchildren. Just make it a family affair that we're going to do a field trip to the Survive Alive
house.
I'm going to say smokehouse, but it is the firehouse. The firehouse. Okay, so that's great. That's great. Now let's talk about some of these myths surrounding fire setters.
Well, some of the basic myths are that bedwetting is associated with fire setting. So if you have a child that wets his or her bed, that they're going to turn out to be fire setters. Another myth is that fire setting is a phase that they will grow out of.
Okay.
They need to be educated out of that phase. Another myth is that children who set fires will grow up to be adult fire setters.
Okay.
And then one other one is that if you, as a parent, talk to your child about fire, that's going to encourage them to set fires. Those are four of the basic myths.
Well, here go one that I know everybody out there that's listening to this show has heard at one point in time during their childhood. Have him put his hand on that fire. I bet you he won't touch it again.
Yeah, not a good idea.
Now, how many of y'all heard that? If he touch it, he won't touch it again because it's hot. But, we've heard that, but that's not true. So, things about those myths. But tell us some things that parents and folks can do to hopefully prevent fires, and particularly with children who have cognitive delays or developmental delays. I'm thinking about children from the autistic community and, what do we call it? Down syndrome community. Are there special prevention tips that we can share with our audience today?
the adults, the family members, the guardians have to make fire safety as a crucial part of their family.
Okay.
And you know, we can prevent a lot of fires. Having working smoke alarms in your house
Yes.
is key. Having an exit plan in case your house does catch on fire. Having every member of your family, the ones with special needs, who's going to help that special
Right.
need child out of that house. Having a plan of how to get out of the house. Having a meeting place where you're going to meet after that fire once you get out. Making sure that you have your furnace checked yearly
Okay.
by a qualified technician. Making sure that you,
What is it about furnaces that cause fires?
well, that they have fire in it. There's
Well,
a flame,
well, I guess
and
that's
it's
a big one, right?
combustible. It's-
One.
We got to scratch that for the record. You know?
and if it's not properly maintained, it can malfunction and lead to a fire.
What about dryers?
Dryer's the same thing. Don't throw in a load of clothes in your dryer and then leave your house.
Wow.
If you have a dishwasher in your house, don't start a load of dishes in your dishwasher and then leave the house. It's the same philosophy as when you have a candle.
Don't leave it
Don't leave
unattended.
it unattended,
Yep.
and don't leave it burning while you go to bed.
Well, now you're talking about a dishwasher. I can see if you're saying don't boil some food or cook some food, then leave the home.
Because that dishwasher could malfunction, could have
Wow.
an electrical malfunction,
fire, right.
and then all of a sudden that fire is going to start
So are
smoldering.
are there some tips in terms of how to put out an electrical fire versus what do you call it, a grease fire?
The best bet is having an all-purpose fire extinguisher in your house.
All-purpose
If
fire
you have one and maybe located, and I go overboard because that's our profession, but if you have one, if you have a garage, you have one maybe in your basement, one in your kitchen.
Okay, kitchen
it-
near
it-
the furnace or the whatever. The
Yes,
the
stove, basement,
Okay,
but
okay.
and in your kitchen.
Because
you
I know
closer
for
to
foster
stove.
parents that they have to have those in those locations you just talked about.
That's correct.
You know, but what about fire escape ladders? You know, are they good to use or not good to use? What are your thoughts?
They're good,
Okay.
but there again, it's a tool, and in order
tool.
to utilize that tool, what do you have to do? You have to
educate
practice,
and train,
you have
yes.
to educate, and they sell those at Home Depot,
Menards, and
and
they're
Ace
not
Hardware.
really that expensive.
They're, no, they're relatively $40 or
Okay.
so, I would say.
Okay.
But you have to practice. You just can't have that in your house and then say, okay, we're
In the
all of a
box
sudden
under the
a
bed.
fire,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden a fire starts and no one ever knew how to put that ladder into play and exit that. So that's all part of the exit drills that a family should practice periodically with their family.
At what age do we start teaching our children fire safety prevention?
As soon as they can. As soon as they can understand. But
Okay.
again, I said children are visual.
Right.
Okay.
So if they see their mom or dad or their older brothers or uncles smoking, and they
Okay.
see them light up that cigarette or leave a stove unattended or light a candle and leave those resources, the lighter and matches out for that child's curiosity is gonna start running
And that
wild.
speaks to the fixation and the beauty of fire and seeing that flame and that orange and
Yes.
that red and
Yeah.
it draws you to it. It's almost like a campfire.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about at the circus, they use fire stuff too. So we can see fire used in so many different ways. One is entertainment, but then when somebody's house is ablaze,
Right.
you know.
And if you
Yes.
think
Yeah,
about it,
yeah.
if I've never taught about fire, but I see it
You have to
everywhere,
respect it. Right.
I think it's okay.
Yes, and that goes with the smoking. If people smoke, try to go outside your house and smoke, especially in front of young children who are so impressionable.
Absolutely.
Okay, now in terms of fire safety prevention tips, fireplaces and chimneys, you know,
They need to have those cleaned every so often.
Every so often,
they
I
need
think
to
about-
maintain that. Again, with a fireplace, you're not going to set a fire, especially around this time of the year, and you and your family are sitting around that fire and then go off to bed. You want to make sure that fire is completely out.
Wow. Well, this has been great. We're going to take a break. And thank you again, Lieutenant, for taking time to come on Fresh Start today to share this critical, important information, this vitally important information with this audience. And we hope that, everything will go well with the fire prevention programs that you're offering and more families and children will utilize those resources. Thanks again for all
Yep.
your hard work.
Our pleasure, and any time that the Milwaukee Fire Department has an opportunity to go out and talk to the community about fire safety, we're on it. That's what
Gotcha.
we like to do. And any listeners out there, if you are in need of a smoke alarm, please call the smoke detector hotline. The telephone number is 286-8980. The Milwaukee Fire Department will come out to your house. They'll install smoke alarms free of charge.
Free of charge. Wow.
Absolutely.
Will they give us a battery too?
The new kind that we have are 10-year smoke alarms.
There we go.
It's a sealed battery.
Sounds great. Thanks, Lynn. Lieutenant Pauling.
Our pleasure. Thank
All
you.
right.
Did you know that Black children represent 67% of our local foster care community, according to the Department of Children and Families' most recent annual report? Many of these children are not only removed from their parents and siblings, but are placed in families, schools, and neighborhoods that do not reflect or honor their race, culture, or heritage. I was talking to some children who are in foster care the other day, and they said this traumatic experience often leaves them feeling sad, scared, and lonely. Black children and youth do matter. You can help the most vulnerable population of children in our community by becoming a licensed, culturally responsive foster parent with Fresh Start Family Services. Come learn more at our foster care recruitment fair on November the 7th, 2015 at 10 a.m. at Fresh Start Administrative Office, 1720 West Florence Avenue, Suite 200. For more information, call 414-351-1100. That's 414-351-1100. Foster the future. Foster a child.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Fresh Start. Today is 3:45 in the afternoon on October the 28th, and we just had a great conversation with Lieutenant Bill Pauling from the Milwaukee Fire Department, but now we have another everyday hero with us, Mr. Dennis Walton from the Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative. Good afternoon, sir.
Man, how you doing, man?
Man, great. We're doing great over here. Glad to have you here. You all just had a big event, which was your summit. What was so significant about the summit this year?
Well, I mean, what's significant about the summit every year is that it's the one time of the year where, hundreds of men are able to gather and, deal with some of their personal issues.
Okay.
To help them become better fathers. And that's significant because the summit is the largest gathering of men in the state, annually. And for us to have a 10-year anniversary and to be successful for 10 years, we're helping provide direct services to men to help them become better dads. That's significant.
And so I'm glad that men have a place to congregate every October in the city. Mm-hmm. But what happens in the in-between time? I mean, are there services that the Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative offer to men? What do those services look like? And how can we get folks connected, engaged?
Well, the thing with the summit is that the services that we provide at the summit are some services that we provide year-round.
Okay, great.
The summit is just that one time where, everybody can come out and get service right on the spot. But any individual who needs help can come to our office at any time, and they can still get the same type of help. But again, this is our annual gathering to where we're able to work with all of our community partners and show that there's a coalition of support out there around the issues of helping men to become better men. And I think that that's significant because when you talk about collaboration, when you talk about community, when you talk about engagement, when you talk about the social service agencies in our community, and you talk about wrapping those services around individuals who have a specific need, it's impressive. It's impressive to see the cooperation and the unity that comes behind.
So approximately how many fathers do you all serve on an annual basis?
On an annual basis, including the summit, over, I want to say 2,000 men, maybe 1,500 to 2,000 men a year.
Okay.
It varies because, again, we see so many. I work with men every day, one-on-one, as well as we do a number of different workshops throughout the year that build up to the summit. Mm-hmm. So we have a revolving door of men constantly. So I would say at least anywhere between 1,500 to 2,000 men when you add the summit into that.
These fathers that you're serving, I'm sure they come from a variety, a vast array of areas, and they have an extended background. Where are these individuals coming from? And I particularly want to know, are foster fathers and adoptive fathers a part of the community of fathers that, actualize your services or access your services?
All fathers.
All fathers.
All fathers. Yeah, we deal with, every, and that's the one thing about being a father that we have to appreciate is that as a man, you either a father or you had the potential to become one. Doesn't matter what color you are, if you are a male, 12 and over, we have fathers that are 12 years old nowadays, 13, 14 years old.
And so do you work with that population of fathers, and how do you serve that younger generation of fathers?
Traditionally, we have not been focused on that demographic.
Okay.
Because when the work started, it wasn't focused around that area.
Okay.
But as we have grown and providing service and covering this area, we're preparing to go into that area of dealing with prevention and working with younger fathers as well.
So would that possibly include partnerships with, or do you have partnerships with the various type of schools? You know, MPS, and you know, you have the charters and the choice schools.
And those are the partnerships that we're moving into.
That you're moving into,
as you know, for the future. You know, again, when you look at the work of fatherhood over the last 10 years, it's still a very new work.
Yep.
You know, as far as providing a social need in an area to a demographic of people who traditionally have not been represented.
So let me ask you this, because you know, I mean, a lot of us who are listening to this program today have heard of the Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative. You know, whether it's in passing or we've had an intimate relationship with it. But how do you all define fatherhood, and do you think that depending on what community you're engaging, the definition for fatherhood changes, and not just from a racial standpoint, but from a service provider standpoint?
Well, the issue of fatherhood is universal.
Okay,
the
issue is
the issue of you know, the issues that fathers deal with.
But how it's defined.
When you say define, meaning just go a little bit deeper.
Well, what I want to know is, you know, some folk may see the role of a father as XYZ. For example, child welfare, or if you're looking at what you call that court, child support. They may say fatherhood is defined by how much money that a person make. You know, your earning potential. So because provider is a big theme or an element of fatherhood. Whereas in another community, fatherhood there may be a greater value, not just on origin that you produce a child, you know, biologically, but that quality time is greater than how much money you spend on a kid.
Yeah, well, you know, all of those elements are fatherhood across the board.
Okay.
You know, so there's no, you know, when you talk about defining fatherhood, if you're a man who has children and you brought that child into the world biologically, you're the father of that child. Now, each individual has a different set of circumstances when it comes to the challenges of fatherhood.
Okay.
But then also you find out that a lot of the issues are the same, and that's what I've been able to. I think that's probably been one of the greatest areas for me to learn, that if you can be you can be a father and be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or you can be a father that's just coming out of incarceration. But that doesn't mean you don't owe child support. That doesn't mean that you're not having challenges with your children. That doesn't mean that you have parenting skills. Right. So, you know, regardless of what your background is, if you've brought children into the world, the area of parenting and the skill of fathering is something that all men need to, you know, continue to develop for themselves.
And you know, I think that's so powerful, because whether it is a foster dad or a CEO, I think the message there is you're not alone. Right. Because we all share some of the same responsibilities, and we still need to get the same message across, and that's being there, being a part of that child's life. Whether it's grade school, high school, etc. And you mentioned, when you talk about building those partnerships with possibly MPS and different social services agencies, to start talking to those young fathers about family contraception and things like that earlier.
And that's what I want to talk about. And I'm glad you both brought that up. You know, what role do fathers play in the sexual development and reproductive health of their children, both boys and girls?
I think it's critical. I mean, especially when you look at the fact that there are so many father absent homes today.
Okay.
And then you look at the condition of our community, you look at the condition of our children, you look at the ills that our children are facing every day. A lot of that can be tied directly to the root of fathering. Was a father there? If he was there, what type of father was he? You know, what type of relationship did you have with him? You know, the roots of fathering. Was your father a person who was a person who was an alcoholic? Did he abuse drugs? You know, did he go to church? You know, what that style of fathering directly reflects upon the upbringing of individuals. So when we talk about the role of a father and being a committed, involved, and responsible father, when you have men who are committed to the family and have the parenting skills necessary, then you see more stability in homes. You see children who are growing up with more of a understanding of self, and not falling into some of the ills that a lot of other people in our community are.
And we can't assume just because a father is absent from the home that he's absent from that child's life.
No, and let me clarify that, because just because a father's not in the home doesn't mean that he's not in the child's life. So when we're talking about being a committed father, are you in the life of that child? Because the nature of the family has changed so much.
It takes a lot of time, and involvement in raising a child. We know
a lifetime.
Now, what about fathers who are serial dads or serial impregnators? You have 9 kids who are in 5 different homes. So it's impossible for you to live in the same home with all 9 of those kids. So how do fathers balance in terms of how much time they spend with which child?
Well, honestly, it becomes a challenge.
And
some guys do it better than others. I know guys who have 10, 11 children, and all 11 children stay with them. Or I know some guys who have 10, 11 children, and they have 5 or 6 different mothers, but they still have a good relationship with their children. Wow. Then you have the guy who has 12 or 13 children by 10 different women, and his situation is a total mess.
Right.
So every situation varies. Just because you have multiple children or multiple situations doesn't mean that you're not a good father.
But is it just equally important to spend as much time and involvement with all of your children, regardless to what their address is?
It's definitely equally important.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, because if you're not within that same geographic area, for example, if you have a child in California, if you're not able to be there every day, we are in the information age. You got Facebook, you got Snapchat, you can do face-to-face contacts over the phone, you can write your kids letters, you can there's ways to be involved in your kid's life.
Yeah, and again, the way the world is today, lots of fathers have to be creative with that. They have to use all those different methods of technology.
And do you provide that training right there? Because some people just don't know. They don't know how to Skype. Some fathers just don't know how to, what you call it, Snapchat. I just heard that word the other day. So is that most technical assistance that they can get from you?
Well, most of the men that we deal with, they have some type of relationship with their children. They're working to get back into the family. As far as us providing them with information on how to use technology, that's not an area we've necessarily went into when it comes to fathering, but it's something to consider.
Well, again, I want to commend the Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative on the great work that you are doing in the community, and I'm excited to know that you are going to be working more with a male teenage population. It's certainly needed.
Powerful.
Very powerful. And anytime you want to come and talk about what you're doing with that population, other endeavors that you all have, please feel free to come and join us on this forum. How can people get in contact with you all?
Well, definitely they can contact us, the Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative. They can go to MilwaukeeFatherhood.com.
All right.
To our website, or they can contact us at 414-286-5653.
All right. Again, thanks a lot, Mr. Walton, for coming on Fresh Start today. For those of you who are listening, Fresh Start has a foster care recruitment fair that's coming up on, what is this, November the 7th, 2015 at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. It's a 1-hour recruitment fair. If you are interested in providing temporary care to children that have been removed from their homes for one reason or another, please give us a call at 414-351-1100. We need more viable resources in the Milwaukee area until those children no longer need foster care services. And I just want to say something, Fresh Start is not an agency that's interested in just licensing any and everybody. We need people who are really vested and interested in the care of children, their emotional state. and that's going to be hands-on and committed to working with a team of folks. So that's what we look for, culturally responsive individuals. As I indicated in the commercial, 67% of the children who are in our local foster care community are African American, and we just need some homes that are culturally responsive. So if you are interested in becoming a licensed treatment foster parent with Fresh Start Family Services or any other agency, this have to be a collaborative effort. Call 414-351-1100, or you can call now the Division of Milwaukee Child Protection Services, which was formerly the Bureau of Milwaukee Child Welfare, and I'm sure they can direct you to an agency of your choice. And also, if you would like to watch some of the other shows that we've done here on Fresh Start Today, you can go on YouTube and type in Fresh Start Today and look at all the shows that we've done. So again, thank you. Be well, be safe, and
last but not least, this upcoming Saturday, there is a coat drive that Fresh Start is hosting, and it's going to be at the Red Snapper 2 at 6016 West Lisbon Avenue, and that's going on from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
All right, be well, be safe, and we'll see you next week.